Dynamic top 10 ranked bantamweights. Headline this card, we have Rob Font taking on Chito, Marlon Vera. As always, one half your host, Craig Allen. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP. The man with the hair to my left, Matt Allen, respective socials, Matt Allen FNP. Marlon Vera on a tear, knocked out former lightweight champion at that, Frankie Edgar's last time out in the third round with a disgusting front kick. It was Machida and Anderson Silva-esque. And for Rob Font, ended a tidy little win streak that spanned multiple years because Rob Font's not a guy that fights very often. Taking on Jose Aldo's last time out, he got knocked down a couple of times, but showed great resolve and some pretty good volume in that fight. Albeit that one was a tough one against an all-timer at the featherweight division, I should say, in Jose Aldo. So this one, 135. The craziest part about it for me is the fact that both of these guys debuted in 2014 in the UFC, yet Rob Font is more than 5 years older than Marlon Vera. Kind of crazy to see that, but
a lot of similar opponents, though, even early in their career.
And for Rob Font, in that time, from 2014 to now, 9-4 total record. He's got 4 UFC bonuses that you like to see. Chito Vera, 12-6. And 6 bonuses. So it's kind of wild. Vera, definitely the more active guy. And for Vera, I guess I should say the variety of finishes that he possesses are multiple. Can you kind of elaborate on that one for us?
So, Marlon Vera is a really interesting fighter because he's a great striker but wins a lot by submission, and he kind of is the king of the comeback. And I'll get back to that point a little later on, but a lot of people forget that early on in Marlon Vera's career, he was known as a guy who would lose the first 2 rounds, and then you'd be like, hey Marlon, we gotta do something in the third, and luckily he would turn up his urgency and do something crazy, like
Hulk Hogan.
Well, the Brad Pickett fight's the one I always think about. Poor Brad Pickett had his retirement fight in London. They were like, hey, you want to fight Marlon Vera? Because no one knew who Vera was. He wins the first 2 rounds with his wrestling, and then Marlon Vera head kicks him, and it was really, really, really bad. But that's what you have to remember. Marlon Vera's not a guy who goes out and wins a lot of rounds because he is such a finisher. But the difference is, he's not like Mark Hunt, who only has to rely on his punching power to get wins. He can win via submission. He can win via TKO on the feet. The weird thing, though, in this fight against Rob Font is, and here's the thing, we should probably let everyone know, we both thought Frankie Edgar was going to beat Marlon Vera, and guess what? He was well on his way to doing it until he ate a big front kick.
The judges were scoring that at the time. One had it 2018 Edgar, the other 2 had it 1919, with Vera winning the second, but that second round was really close. I had it for Edgar at the time.
Well, of course you did, Craig, because you... But for Marlon Vera, he was losing that fight, and that's what you have to remember. He was losing until he won. Rob Font had a great performance against Jose Aldo. I know he got dropped a couple times, but you know what I really appreciated in that fight? He never stopped doing what he thought was going to win him the fight. He knew, okay, if I beat Jose Aldo, I'm not going to out-wrestle him. He's one of the best counter wrestlers we have ever seen. I'm probably not going to out-jiu-jitsu him. I'm going to have to get in the pocket and out-box him. And yes, Aldo would hit him with power shots every now and then, but Rob Font never got discouraged by that. He would get dropped. He would, like you said, show great resolve, get back up to his feet, and he wouldn't become a lesser version of himself after that. He would get right back in the pocket and keep on throwing strikes, because he knew, if I'm going to win this fight and get over that knockdown, if I'm going to get it back into my favor and back, get the momentum back, I'm going to have to start landing more strikes. Whereas with Vera, he does rely a lot on that big Hail Mary comeback at the end of fights, and a lot of times it requires your opponent to either be a little bit older in their careers, like a lot of Marlon Vera's big wins are, or they don't have good cardio. That's not an issue that Rob Font has whatsoever.
When I look at this fight, again, Rob Font, when he took on Jose Aldo, he mixed in some of the wrestling. It did not work for him, and Aldo was able to buck some of those attempts. He was able to really have good counter wrestling and a good top pressure. But when you do look at this fight for Rob Font, this is his 3rd main event in a row. He had the Cody Garbrandt fight. Against Cody Garbrandt in rounds 4 and round 5, he was able to implement his wrestling. He already had Garbrandt tired after the first 3. He outboxed Cody Garbrandt. He out-wrestled Cody Garbrandt. Like, it was kind of eye-opening. And again, yes, Garbrandt had the losses, but he also had the win over Sunsao to fall back on. And that's the guy that Rob Font had lost to in the past. And again, y'all must have forgot. Sunsao was pretty well due a title shot at one point. It just didn't happen. So I know his recent run, his 4-fight losing streak, it's not that sexy, but Sunsao was a guy and a player at a time. Now, for Rob Font, on the win streak that he had before losing to Aldo, How about current bantamweight champ over with Bellator, Sergio Pettis? Now they threw an interim championship in there because he's out due to injury, and his teammate Raufeon Stotts won it last night. But Pettis, very impressive fighter, beats Ricky Simone, does Font, beats Marlon Moraes, beats Cody Garbrandt. And for Vera, the 5-on-in, lost to Sung Yadong, win over Sean O'Malley, lost to Jose Aldo, win over Davey Grant, and then the win over Mr. Frankie Edgar. Now, the Jose Aldo fights for both of these guys a little bit different because for Font, got dropped twice in that one, got outboxed in a way, but if you look at it, numbers on a page, stats lie. Because Rob Font was way ahead in terms of significant strikes and total strikes, and volume really does win rounds when it comes to some of these fights in this division. But it was the power, it was the significance of those shots from Jose Aldo that won him the rounds. I had it 50-45 for Aldo, neither here nor there. But for Chito Vera, when he took on Aldo brought the kitchen sink to him in that fight. He really did.
He looked really well-rounded in that, and he did out-wrestle Marlon Vera at the end of that fight. But here's the thing. I do not expect Rob Font to grapple at all against Marlon Vera. Vera is the much better grappler in this matchup. And if he does get a takedown early, I think he could ground and pound and maybe even submit Rob Font. But the problem is, unless he's able to really get Rob Font tired, which we've yet to see in the cage, or get that early takedown and get him down when he's dry and submit him, I like Rob Font quite a bit in this fight with his output and with his overall boxing because Marlon Vera is a hittable fighter. You can get to him. He holds his hands very high, but it's not an active guard. It's a stationary guard. And Rob Font's a smart enough boxer where he can go to the body, go to the head, finish with combinations, different areas of the body, and I like that a lot from Font.
Yeah, Marlon Vera, one of those guys training at Aruka Sport, obviously the boxing coach Jason Perillo is going to draw a lot out of what he's seen from the New England Cartel. You know those guys Carlos Candelario's on this card, but a guy like Calvin Kattar as well, long for the weight class, really good classical boxing. Same thing as Rob Font. Font's not a guy that implements a ton of leg kicks into his fights, whereas Marlon Vera, great whipping leg kick that he has, and if it damages the lead leg of Font enough, it can really mess up that game plan. So we throw it on over to you folks over in the YouTube community tab, threw it out there a couple hours ago, and out of 381 total votes, 52% going with Rob Font, the 48% with Marlon Vera. In that comment section, Bob saying, I see Font actually grappling. Just got to say it, despite the finish, Vera looked bad his last fight versus Edgar. Had a huge reach advantage, was getting touched the whole time. Also was getting taken down easily and held down. Chad Johnson, Chito can take this. He's a very slow starter, but he can compete with anyone, but not putting too much money on it. Dravi20 saying Font got this. Better boxing volume. He has 5-round experience now. Stephen Williams saying Chito needs to open the heck out of that calf kick if he wants this one. And we'll go with one more, Matt. Jonathan saying Font by decision. Also looking forward to the Meerschaert versus Jotko. Thinking Gerald might get a sub. Any views? Well, Jonathan, you're in luck. We're going to talk about that fight quite a bit. But, Matt, for me, you bring up that point. I mean, Chito's got a high tie guard where he will bring his leg up, too, to try and defend some of those kicks when he goes in the defensive. Rob Font's boxing to the body is something to behold. The jab that he pumps out there, he can go hook as well. One of my favorite strikes in all of combat sports, not just MMA.
It's that lead hook to the body.
Lead hook to the body. You know it. I'm a sucker for Canelo loves to do it once he softens you up top. But I love that out of Rob Font. We'll have a look at the Topology votes, just see if there's more of them out there. It's fairly close, too. 597 total votes, 56% Font, 44% Vera. And if we have a look at the odds for this fight, Rob Font, slight favorite, opened at a minus 175. He's minus 138 right now. Chito Vera, open plus 150, plus 113. So the odds closing into par. Chito Vera's never been in a 5-round fight in his entire 28 fight pro career. Rob Font's, this will be his third. How that factors in, it will come to see, because Vera, usually very strong in the third round. Usually, but against a guy like Rob Font, who never gets tired even in 5-round atmospheres, I do favor Font in this type of a fight. I think Vera could have success with some damaging shots early, but Font is as steady as they come, even if he is eating power shots. The difference is, Vera can box a little bit on the feet, but I don't think he can make Rob Font pay with power like Jose Aldo could. And like you said, if you just look at the numbers, Rob Font fought a pretty good fight against Jose Aldo. He still maintained a lot of output throughout that 5-round fight. So if he's not eating power shots, I think those numbers are going to look even better against a guy like Marlon Vera. Vera, very, very snappy striker, and those leg kicks to great effect. You saw that in the Sean O'Malley fight, and he was able to get the win there due to that fact. But again, I do agree with you on the pick of Rob Font, but this is one of those fights, I can't wait to see this one play out this weekend.
It should be a great fight.
Should be a great fight. Both of us going with the man representing New England. It's Rob Font. And listen, coming up this weekend, we've got question mark kicks. It's 2 hours before the prelims here on the channel. Make sure you toss out a subscription so you get to know when we go live. We get a chance to recap the week that was, if there's any fights that moved around, if there's anything that changes, especially if Friday's weigh-in days go squirrely. We get the opportunity to update you and give those final picks and predictions. So check out question mark kicks. Saturday, 2 hours before the prelims. Big time fights coming up this weekend. And as we always say with Fight Night Picks, keep it locked in. That f***ed it.
Let's get into it.
And as we always say with Fight Night Picks, let's get into it.